but exclusion feels equal to a physical pain sometimes. I mean, not
Yes.
including people, not making them feel. So all the small steps can lead to very big changes. I mean, it is sad. I mean, it is great that we have numbers, but we should not have to require numbers for us to prioritize mental health. You do not need so much percentage, even if it's 54 or it's 4%. It is as good as, like Sindhu was mentioning, it is as important as physical health. Just because you don't have a heart attack because of mental health, it does not mean that we do not need to prioritize it.
Absolutely. I think that's a very, very valid point and extremely critical point that you made, whether it's going to be 1% of your organization or 54% of your organization or any organization for that matter. It is a challenge. It is a condition. And like Ayushi mentioned yesterday and like Sindhu mentioned today, it needs to become a part of healthcare policy. It needs to become a part of wellness policy that can be addressed and has a medium of getting addressed. Dr. Reena, when you look at awareness within the organization, how do you see awareness percolating across the organization, and how do you see the awareness being absorbed by the employees? Because there still is a lot of reluctance within employees.
Yeah, thank you, Sandesh. And I'm enjoying all the conversations which is happening, and this great learning platform for me to know what are the best practices that is availing and what is that I can adopt. So thanks for this opportunity, Sandesh. And well, I'll give you an example of what we do in terms of one of the best practices that I feel has worked out very well. I can give you examples of two diverse cases that we have handled, but I strongly feel LICIP plays a vital role in promoting the mental health and the inclusivity within organization which has got diverse workforces, and that's very important. For us, as I've been talking, that we started with something on workforce for women and then WOW champions and all. And recently we have introduced male LICIP. And why I'm talking about this is when it comes to mental health, and I found there could be many reasons for mental health, but then when you create a space where you make the employees feel that they are safe and they are okay to talk to their colleagues in terms of their mental health condition, that gives that confidence, and our managers have demonstrated it in terms of listening without being judgmental. So that's something which I really felt it really helped very well for us, because we are from metro rail industry, and we have very less women, those who prefer to come to work in a setup which is dominated by male, and they feel threatened, they feel scared. And that's where their managers play a very important role in terms of seeing that they could provide whatever support that is required in terms of giving them the confidence and also being there to be part of their challenges that they are facing through. It could be mental health, it could be anything, but then, yes, I'm there for you counts a lot. And that's how it encourages, like somebody said, in terms of conversation that can go on, can help. So if I if I have time, if that's possible, I can give you two very different examples of two male allies that I have in the organization, one from the operations, another one from the maintenance. Two different examples, very distinct examples. In operations, we get mostly entry level, fresh engineers, those who come and work with us, those who are between 20 to 24 years age group. And they have different distinct problems in terms of maybe they would have a problem with a relationship that they're going through, or they could have any other challenges that they have got, but they get into this mental health issues. And that's where we have somebody who is a manager and who is like a fatherly figure, and they feel that they can talk to him and can get the support. It could be a very silly issue in terms of somebody is eve teasing them, and then they find it to be highly frightening for them to come to the work at the early morning shift. So that's where somebody goes and stands there for them and talks to the other support system. To that, there are these simple issues where we have large female population who is from the operations and are being able to get the support of the manager in terms of talking to them. It could be an eve tasing, but they could talk to them and say that I have this as an issue, but would you be able to help us out? But if you are given that platform and the manager is also able to hear that out, and he is being a male ally for us. There is another situation that we have got in maintenance where we hardly get female. We have a tracks department where we have 60 male colleagues and one female working as a tracks engineer. And the male manager comes forward and says that the support in terms of understanding what a female goes through at different times, and then try to help the female in not just being nice to a female colleague, but try to be professionally also be understanding on the personal and professional challenges that he or she is going through. So that's where the concept of allyship or a male allyship had really helped us in terms of seeing that it is something which could be beneficial for us. And what we do it to make things happen for us is educate. I mean, that's one thing that we have been continuously talking about, being very vocal that whatever concept that we are trying to bring into the organization, is it everyone being aligned to that? So a lot of discussions that keeps happening in terms of educating in terms of what is allyship, and also we also talk about not to be actually biased, because sometimes this unconscious bias also creates issues which also lead to mental health problems. If they have, it might not be able to address because we might be judgmental in terms of what they go through. So we try and address those issues through different training programs, discussing, having different open forums where we try and talk to people without being judgmental about what people go through. So these are certain things that we have done, Sandesh, and I thought if I could share this with
it's fabulous. And how do you draw the distinction between a support function and professional help? When you have your ally system that's there, there's a support function, there's someone you can lean on to, someone who can listen to you. And where do you draw the distinction between that and counseling and professional help from when you start seeing certain symptoms?
Yeah, here what we are trying to do is we are trying to create awareness of people, those who are not from support system. A support system by default, we are there to support you. Like for HR, by default, when there is an issue, we are there, we would be there for the employees. But more than we being there, the line managers are more important because they come and interact with the people in and day out. So we are trying to empower our line managers to be allies, to be the person that they can go and get in touch with when they are in a difficult situation. HR would be the last person to come in, but we are always there. We don't say that we are not there, but we would try and promote our managers and empower them by giving them different tools, so that the first point of contact are the managers, and that's how it has worked out well for us. The managers are the spokesperson for us, who come to us saying that these could be the potential issues and how can we together help our colleagues. So that is the process that we follow here, Sandesh.
So, fine. So when we look at this, when we look at those two examples that you gave us, we heard about what were the key stressors that were there in those examples. In one case, it was an eve teasing stress. The other case, it was a large
male folks.
Large opposite gender population that makes you feel alienated. So these are probably two of the stressors or the triggers that are there. So how does this, how have you seen this manifest itself in terms of a wellness issue, and what kind of different manifestations do you expect to see with these employees, and how do you want to address that?
The first case that we found out, an eve teasing case, in terms of wellness, trying to make them feel that they are safe. One of the important parameters for us to make our employees feel safe, that yes, we are there for them. And to be there for them, we have programs that we have got, which we have incorporated in our system, which is one is Sahas. Sahas is a program where we have a tie-up with the Telangana police. There is She Team. There is different apps that we have incorporated in the system where they can reach out to us in terms of any emergency. So these are things that we have done from our side to make sure that the wellness is not just on directly linked to their mental, but there are different other attributes which would lead to their issues coming for mental health. So try and address those issues at the grassroots level is what we try and do, so that it does not become a big problem down the line.
Right. And we've always been talking about the topic itself is the stigmas and breaking those barriers and going forward. So, Ms. Bharti, my question is to you. When you talk about mental health, what are the stigmas that actually surround mental health? And are these stigma, when you want to work around breaking these stigmas at the workplace, is it more of an individual effort, or is it a process? Is it a community issue? How would you go about it? And what are these? So how do you address these stigmas?
Thank you, Sandesh. But first, let me say that this conversation has been extremely enlightening, because as a journalist, we are all the time critical. We think nothing is being done. When we go into writing a story, we go in with that perception that nothing is happening and everything is bad. But I'm so happy to know that there's so much happening, and everybody here knows the problem. The problem is known to everybody. The question is, how do we actually begin to address it? And when we talk about stigma, my understanding of stigma is that it is not a monolith. It's a multi-layered problem. It is not one. It's not like one building. You want to demolish this, you get a JCB and you break it down and it's over. It's not. And stigma is not the same for everybody. I could be stigmatized because at the age of 60 plus, I'm going for work and I'm asked, where's the need for you to work at this age? Or it could be that somebody's fat, somebody's thin, somebody doesn't know how to cook, somebody is dressed funnily. So stigma is not the same for everybody. Stigma is there because you're a woman, so many things. So breaking stigma is, in my opinion, abolishing stigma, is not possible. But then we are not bothered about cleaning up the entire muck that there is in the world. We want to sort of create, like, everybody has said about safe spaces, creating safe places for people to talk about whatever is bothering them in terms of mental health, whether there's something bothering them at the work and things like that. So when you talk about destigmatizing at the workplace, somebody talked about storytelling, wonderful. Having town halls where people talk openly about, in this case, very precisely, mental health. So, but the word of caution that I would have as an outsider who's looking, I've never been in the corporate world. I don't know how it feels to be in a corporate world, but I would say, have I assessed the maturity of the employees before exposing them to an open town hall and trying to create a safe space? Are they mature enough to handle the information that might come out? If you actually create the right atmosphere, then stories start coming out. And when these very same people come out of the town hall, what is going to happen to them? And let me tell you, when there are policies, there may be 100 policies, but do they work? Because I have, and when you're talking storytelling, I can tell a story. I was consulting for an organization, and this was, it was an international NGO, and the CEO of that place started harassing me, sexually harassing me. And I went to the POSH committee and made a complaint about this. And the POSH committee assured me, great, they said, oh, we're going to make everything all right. You've been harassed sexually, this, that, everything, fine. But when it came to the management, what I got was very subtle threats. When you come up in front of the committee, we're going to ask you awkward questions. Will you be able to stand this trauma? And the reason I'm quoting this example is that when you actually tell people, come forward with your complaints, for instance, the lady who spoke about, eve teasing and all that. When the person who's actually being teased, when she comes and talks about it, what are the repercussions? Are we ready for that? If we have to destigmatize the workplace, if we have to make it an absolutely safe place, are our policies foolproof? Are we honestly actually implementing them? Or are we being influenced by somebody who's going to then come in and say, no, but then the person you're complaining, and we have enough examples in the world where policies have not worked. So I think we need to start there, absolutely over there. And if we correct that, stigma at the workplace at least will not be a problem, because then we've truly created a safe workplace. So when we talk about destigmatization, how robust, how strong are our policies and how we are implementing them and convincing the employees that we mean business. Never mind if it's the CEO who's at fault. He or she is equally, answerable. So I think stigma reduction comes from there.
See, I've seen two things. Thank you, Bharti. And I see two things over here. One is stigma and the other is fear. There are two distinct, areas. Because usually we tend to...
Sorry to interrupt, but stigma and fear are very closely connected.
Yeah, they're closely connected. Stigma, for example, now, for example, now we've got the fear of losing your job, right? Because you disclose something. Now, that is a fear not related directly to a mental wellness condition. And it is actually a perception that a person has on the basis of which he or she would reserve himself or herself from going and discussing or bringing up a particular point. At the same time, you have something that is very closely connected between stigma and stigma and fear, and that is in terms of credibility. So I have the fear of credibility, quote unquote, saying that is this person with this particular condition able to handle a particular situation? Vis-a-vis, I have the discomfort of actually having to discuss that particular issue with someone. We've seen that in the case of gender. We've seen that in the case of race. And very often we see a lot of discrimination. And I want to bring this point up now because I know Shramona is going to leave us in 16 minutes from now. And I want to target a question to her, because diversity, equity, and inclusion is something that has a huge impact in terms of mental well-being. It was also not a very easy problem to solve. When you start looking at gender-based issues, some people start to confuse sexual preferences for gender-based issues. And at the same time, we start to look at race, we start to look at ethnicity, we start to look at color, disability, which are all diversity challenges that you face. And Shramana, you head that division for Moody's. So how do you see diversity and inclusion as becoming actually a contributor today in mental well-being? Because many organizations I see are force-fitting diversity and inclusion into their agenda, into their recruitment agenda, rather than looking at what's best for an organization. And is that really doing good for the organization, or is it really impacting the people themselves?
Thank you for the question, Sandesh. So to start with, we are a 115 old legacy firm. We have pursued D&I not today. It's very, very old and it's a part of our culture. Typically, why our D&I function is not an expanded HR function. We have a dedicated team, we have sponsorship, we have budgets allocated to it. And of course, I feel it is great for organizations to pursue, because all of that, what you mentioned, we generally strategize our D&I by means of business resource groups. and we have it across Asia Pacific, including India. So we have a Minds Business Resource Group. We have one for Pride. We have one for people who are differently enabled. So, so the way we look at it is that we are an enabler for the business to achieve their objectives. And we do not call ourselves a part of the human resources department. We are a department which is independent and which functions on its own, which is also a crucial message that I have already said, and I'm going to say again, that you can, and more than the numbers, what we very seriously also pursue is inclusion, because diversity numbers, equity, creating opportunities, all of that is still easier than creating that sense of belongingness, which comes with the inclusion part. So we always say that out of the three letters, D and E is still easy. I is the most difficult part. That is where you retain talent. That is what keeps people in the company. That is what creates that sense of belongingness. So of course, DNA is very big for us, and I believe we have had quite a lot of success across the globe, across Asia Pacific, and for Moody's, it is going to continue to be what it is currently. So I believe all organizations, by all means, should prioritize it, and and of course, we do have wellness and we do have all of that. But DNA is completely separate, independent, and without any quotas per se. But we truly believe it is what helps our business. And we have numbers very much, which we cannot share, of course. We contribute to the success of the business very much.
Yeah. In fact, the gentleman sitting next to you, in fact, both the gentlemen sitting next to you, one is Akshay and the other is Mr. Sudhanva. They are entrepreneurs. They've built organizations with very diverse set of people. And I want to go to Akshay on this particular topic. Akshay, when you set up our process and then when you built the team with a lot of rural or socially deprived workforce, what are the big challenges that you saw? How did you manage that, and how did you ensure that they felt included and involved within the organization?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for that question.
I know it was out of syllabus because I was going to ask you something else, but
no, it's more of my passion, so it's more relevant than any other question. But yeah, for a company that established about 12 years ago, largely looking at people from tier 2 and tier 3 towns, Mysore, if we can call Mysore a tier 2. Tier 3 towns are the ones surrounding Mysore, maybe 50 kilometers. And also employing a large women workforce of 65 to 70% are women. So those who come from the rural backgrounds, they all have the same degree of passion to do work and to excel in their own work. It's up to us how we create an environment which is inclusive in nature and welcoming in all forms, so that everyone is able to do their best and give their best output. Now, of course, there's a lot of things that have been done at a very granular level, but if I were to point out a few top things, it's definitely about training, understanding the language in which to train. And I say language, it's not the spoken language, but the different mechanisms that we use to communicate. We also have a workforce of disabled persons, and there's at least 5% of the company is disabled. Now, it's just not by chance that's happened. There's a concerted effort to recruit and rope in these people, and they also bring in a degree of involvement of the entire workforce. When the 95% who are not disabled actually bind together with each other in many ways and start understanding that whatever they may lack, there are others who lack that much more, and they start appreciating that. So the goal is to show the positive of each individual, and then of course the various things that were also mentioned earlier about promoting open communication, having those forums. But these are the kind of methods that we have used to rope in and get the best out of this workforce.
Fantastic. So, Dr. Sindhu, this is back to you again, and this is to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what role do you think that's going to play in making policies within organizations, and how critical is that? You're on mute.
I am in concurrence with what other panelists have said so far in talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is a very multi-layered subject. And as you rightly pointed out, Sandesh, a lot of times it's like a force fit that is put in a company's policy. It's like at the end of the bottom line, we are a DEI organization and we are equal opportunity employers, and that's where the lip service starts and ends. Do we really understand what DEI actually means? Do we kind of like, again, coming back to the how we use vocabulary and what those words really stand for? How diverse is diverse? What is equality, or is it equity? What does inclusion mean? I think we should go back to the building blocks of understanding what are we actually trying to say when we say DEI? Is it like a fancy hold-all term that is like corporate language or educational language, or is it language that we actually have put meaning into, or do those words have any meaning? So once we break that down and then we understand what we actually are trying to say by DEI, then perhaps we can have policies and implement steps to kind of actually make that work. As long as we kind of keep seeing it as some kind of a fancy corporate lingo, or a lingo that we are going to use just because we have to check off the boxes of, okay, we are equity, we are diversity and inclusion, nothing's going to change. So I think we should really go back to the drawing board and ask ourselves, diversity, like you pointed out, sexual preferences is very different from gender injustice, right? So lumping it into gender or sexual preferences as one, are we breaking down, are we thinking through what we use when we use these terms? It's the same as talking about mental health. Are we thinking through what we mean when we say mental health well-being? Have we thought through this? So you can't slap on a policy and effective mechanisms if you don't have the foundation right.
Correct. And yesterday Ayushi made a point about domain and functions playing a very important role in the type of challenges one faces and the kind of impact that it's going to have on one's mental health, and how policies they need to be addressed with that keep in mind. Now, when we look at it, there are two people here who have invited to be a part of this panel. One of them is Mr. Narayan Swamy, and the other is Dr. Madhavi. They come from two diverse fields. One is a police officer, and the other is a doctor. And she's been in terms of therapy and rehabilitation and so on. So she deals with a lot of trauma and possibly, I don't know, a sympathetic trauma possibly as well that goes along with her profession. But coming to you, Mr. Narayan Swamy, you've been a member of the anti-terrorism squad, right? You've been a member of the anti-Naxal squad. You've headed that division. You've been a part of and led a team that was part of Operation Cocoon, which enabled capturing of Veerappan, right? But along these big journeys, there'll be a lot of day-to-day challenges that you've seen that could be very, very traumatizing, and which could play a lot on your mind, which could play a lot on your morale, could play a lot on your ethics. Very often you may be doing or in a situation where you are in a very difficult position to choose between two options that you have.
Hello.
And what the department home actually give you?
Yeah, for a moment I could not able to hear you the last words, whatever it is, but it's enchanting. It's very, very nice to hear from all the experts, particularly for the well-being. They have been doing a human surveys, and I am from a totally different faculty, like a cop, a police officer who has been working for the law and order and maintain the peace and tranquility in the nation. So it's a part and parcel of us, right from the traffic police, right from the crime, and right from the law and order, whatever it is which comes, we'll have to immediately respond. So we have to expect a constable, a head constable, a ASI or a PSI, or any rank officer. When it comes to on the land, even if he's a commissioner of police, or even if he's a ADGP or a DGP, or whatever the rank he is equal to an ordinary constable kind of thing. When he has to maintain law and order there, when he, say, for example, in Freedom Park or in the Basappa Park or in the town hall or in like Palace Ground, wherever the protests are going on or what kind of protests are going on. So he has to look into whether it's a farmers protest or it is a government's factory workers protest, or else employees are doing the protest, or the doctors. Say, for example, when West Bengal went hair-sick, when a rape case incident happened, whether it is a doctor's protest, whether it's the engineers protest, or some like elite people are protesting. Likewise, so a constable or a police officer, when he is handling over there, he is supposed to have most of the common sense rather than the high profile knowledge which he is supposed to be having it. As far as the civilians concerned, each constable is considered as something like Sarvajna, like whatever the problem they have, they can go to the police station, get it solved. That kind of an attitude will be there. But in a real sense, he may not be in a position to solve that, but still, with a common sense, how he has to maintain that stress level and strain level, and he has to be maintaining his family problem also, and at the same time, the time factors. Say, for example, the last time when I was telling about, like most of the, there's a saying, the cop will not be seeing his children at all. Like, so when he is leaving home, his child will be sleeping. When he is coming home after the work, the child will be sleeping. Likewise, a child may not be looking at the father itself. So there will be a problem from the wife, problem from the children. They will be having it. And this kind of situation, a cop will have to be maintaining that stress. Addition to that, here the senior officer will be demanding, because the society, Bangalore City, say for example, being a cop in Bangalore City, a multifaceted problem demanding Bangalore City, where it is Silicon City, nearly about 80 lakh vehicles hit the road every day. And from Bendakadu to Bangalore, it happened. The roads are, we cannot do it, widen it within Bangalore City. Only the wider and outer ring roads and other things, we can accommodate all these vehicles and all that. And we have 142 lakh people are there. And various, as you know, that multifaceted problem means multifaceted religious and caste and economical background, and like we are the Silicon City, ITBD city, and we have to provide everything. Say, for example, when Modi ji came, the first thing the citizens of Bangalore City, in fact, all panel people, if they are from Bangalore, they would be telling the same thing. Like, what is your problem? Traffic is the biggest problem of Bangalore City. That will be the biggest stress and strain, not only for the citizens of the Bangalore City, but also to the cops. Cops never wanted the citizen to suffer this stress and strain. They wanted to make it free. But the problem is, how many CC cameras have to be put, how many junctions have to be put, how many signal centers have to be put, how many one-way traffic has to be done. And within the congested and within the constrained roads and signals and other things, these cops have to be doing it. That is the greatest stress and strain he'll be doing. And he cannot just say, yes, because of this, we are doing it. We cannot tell it to the citizen. The citizen wants some solution. They have come to have some solution to the cop, whether it is a traffic problem, whether it is a law and order problem, whether it is a crime problem, whatever the problem a citizen comes up, he wants a solution. He don't want to have some other problem once again put on his shoulder, like because of the lacuna which we cannot give it. No. So cop has to have that strain and stress. He has to maintain it, and then with the help of his seniors, with the help of his juniors, he will have to just find out some solution. Yeah, there is no ready-made solution for having a multifaceted problem throwing at him. There is absolutely, maybe the IPC section, CRPC section, Evidence Act and Special and Local Law, Police Manual 123 and Karnataka Police Act, all these acts will come to help him to put whatever the written complaint is there or oral complaint is there, it can be brought down to the section wise, and then there is a lengthy process of an investigation officer taking it to the next level and bringing it to the table of the judiciary, where you'll have to recreate the whole scene of occurrence and all these things. While doing it, so lots of stress and strain comes to him because collection of evidence, material evidence, circumstantial evidences, and it is very, very, to say, for example, recently cybercrime and other factors. It is putting more stress on the cop once again. Cybercrime, see, for example, the people of us, say I am now 66 and I got retired 6 years back, and the people like us, we never knew the mobile phone will come. And we never knew there will be a tabletop and there will be a laptop and there will be all this internet and social media will be so powerful and all things. We are of that era. We are cops of the old era. So now when we have to cope up with this internet problem, now we have to deal with ITBT people. An Infosys guy comes with, I lost 2 crore in the cybercrime. My poor constable will not be knowing what is 2 crore, where you have kept it. Is it stolen from your bag, or is it stolen from the home? Likewise. So now, sitting in somewhere in Calcutta, somewhere in Delhi, somewhere in other countries, if one can steal crores of rupees with hacking all these things, the constable have to apply his knowledge, and that is where once again strain and stress comes. He has to in the last minute when he's on the way, there are different phases. Some people now, very recently, we are having a better crop cops, like those ones who have done MTech, those ones who have taken BTech and BE, all these technically educated people who know science know-hows, and they have been learning in the instrumentation technology, computer science, electronics, and they can handle social media. These people can, somehow or other, they can manage, but they will have to work with the other people, and there will be so much of stress on them. Say, for example, in Bangalore city only, we have nearly about 130,000 people in Karnataka state of the various rank police officers. And as we have Pandavas, Bhima will get the major share. The likelihood out of 130,000 police cops of various rank, Bangalore city alone is consuming nearly about 26 to 27,000 police officers of the various rank. They work here only to maintain 142 lakh people's problems and the wars. So we have 8 subdivisions and 9 cybercrime police stations, 2 all-women police stations, and we have nearly about 47 traffic police stations with all these 27,000 policemen who are working in all these police stations of various faculties. They are trying to solve the problems of not only 142 lakh people, there are nearly about 10 to 15 lakh people who come into Bangalore city every day for their daily routine work, like satellite towns like Tumkur, Kolar, KGF, Chikkaballapur, Doddaballapur. From these talukas, where satellite towns of Bangalore city, they are also pouring in, and because of the jobs and job security and other factors, as Bangalore is the only place where normally a technical people, whether he gets graduated from Bidar, Bidapur, Raichur, Bellary in 32 districts and 4 commissionerates, they will all pour into Bangalore city. There is a saying, Sudha Narayan Murthy was telling, I think somewhere there in the interview, hey, we have a wonderful office in Mysore, why don't you go over there? And an IT guy, he said it, ma'am, we would have gone, but Mysore city doesn't have Brigade Road and MG Road. See, imagine, there are several things which we prefer it and all that. This from the stress and strain our cops are getting it. It's not only that the graduation, and we are giving all sorts of training, of course. whatever the training level we give it. If we have a wonderful Karnataka Police Academy, which is a wonderful premier training center in Mysore city, where sub-inspector and above people will be trained over there. We have police training college in Gulbarga, and we have other police training schools in Chenpatna and other places. So all basic training indoor and outdoor, because physical fitness is one and the most thing which is needed for our job. For that reason only, very reason only, unlike other jobs, say for example, all our penal experts, they need not have to be physically fit. They can sit and their cerebrum, medulla oblongata, if they are very quick to grab and get, our journalism madam is there. She's attacking me if I go wrong like. So they can.
I like Mr. Sudanva's smile for that comment that you just made.
Yeah.
I know
because
he wants.
see,
I know he wants to react to that.
So they can do it. But here, while taking in a police officers of various rank, the first and foremost thing we give importance to physical fitness. We do physical fitness first. If he is not physically fit, even if he is a gold medalist of any university, including Jawaharlal Nehru University, we will not take him as even a constable, an ordinary constable. He cannot become an ordinary constable. First and foremost thing is he should be physically fit. Throwing event, running event, jumping event, all these events will be all-round revet. We'll have to find out whether he is physically fit. Then medical.
That's a discussion for the 10th of October when we have the physical and mental well-being being together. But before we go ahead, what I'd like to do is
occupation-driven mental well-being only. If I can focus on that, see, this is an occupation. Say, for example, a cop. When he is subjected to all round we want. There is a rape case, then he will have to go and attend. And one rape case attendance, say for example, a cop goes over there. First of all, first thing he faces is always cops comes late. When the crime happens, then he comes. Will he be imagining? He will be, is he a god that there is, yes, it is going to happen. If it is going to happen, he could have prevented it. So normally we face that problem with all civilians. We are all late at birthday. You are the late comer always. So that is the first and foremost we'll receive it. So even then, after coping it, if you go there are a lot of procedures which we'll have to follow it, because judiciary with the telescope and the microscope, they will be watching the cocky. So what they're doing it, where he is going to commit mistake, and he cannot have any mistakes done, particularly profession-wise. Even if he goes wrong, the sections are there. Instead of the man who raped it, he may get away, but not the police officer who has gone for the investigation. He may go into the jail. Parapanagrara is always waiting for this khaki fellow to engulf the khaki fellow. So the idea is this strain of occupation is very, very much playing on him.
So how does the government actually help you with that? Do they give you
100%.
facility to... See,
as far as the public is concerned, for your information, as far as public is concerned, the constable who goes there, he is the first route attached to the mother route. Say if we say that DGIG is our top man above that.
No. My question is a little different. My question is a little different. My question is, when you undergo various stresses, you're undergoing a moral stress, you're undergoing a compassionate feeling or any of those emotions that you're undergoing, how does the government come to you with a policy or some kind of an opportunity for you to be able to discuss your challenges with them? Do they give you counseling services? Do you have something that's already in place? And is it effective?
Yeah. Government is more than helping us. There is no doubt about it, because we are the only department who will not produce anything. We will not produce anything, not even a pin, gun pin. We don't produce anything. But we are the people who will be helping the people who produce anything to this world, anything to the world, whether an engineer or a doctor or anybody. If he is not in the peaceful mind, he will not do anything good. So that is why a police will only help it. So in this regard, government is helping us. There are lots of well-being officers we have employed. See, ourselves, there will be a psychologist psychology professor will be there even in the training centers, in the KPA, PDC, and PDS, and all others. So, in one way, by practical implementation of the law and going and seeing all the problems, he himself will be a small psychologist. He is almost a doctor of a social level. Apart from that also, there are well-being officers employed in the government to look after certain tensions which are beyond his coping. So there are 60, 70
Sure.
well-being officers who are all MSc psychology and all these.
So we're at 4 o'clock, and in the interest of time, I'm going to quickly jump into Madhavi.
Yeah.
Madhavi, you're a person who's been a doctor. You've practiced in India, overseas. You also have your rehabilitation center, Gunashila Rehabilitation Centers. You do face a lot of people who have faced a lot of trauma, and when you go across and see this kind of trauma that you encounter or people have encountered, how much of compassion fatigue do you encounter? How much of vicarious trauma do you go about? Can you just give us, and how do you handle it?
Thank you, Sandesh, for the question. The thing is, I have worked in the inpatient settings abroad and inpatient and outpatient over here. However, the thing about rehabilitation medicine is it is a team effort. It involves the physiatrist, that's me, the doctor, and we have a team of occupational therapists, and we have the physical therapists, and we have the vocational therapists, and you also have psychological counseling. So we work as a team to take care of different aspects of healing. So say a person has had an injury, a sports injury or whatever, or he has surgery, then the physical therapist comes on board. She takes care of the problem. Then you have the occupational therapist who sees if he can get back to work, what's going on with his other life. Is he able to go back and do his IT job or whatever job he's doing, because he may be a sportsman doing this also. And then you have the psychological therapist, because that therapist comes in to deal with his psychological problems. So the thing is, we all deal with different aspects of healing. It's not just one person. And so we share the burden of dealing with the patient. It's not like one patient sits down and talks to me about everything. I deal with one thing, the others in the team deal with other things. So the shared burden decreases our trauma. But we do have trauma, not just in my specialty. The medical industry itself is prone to a lot of stressors because we don't have fixed hours, and doctors work 24/7 and long working hours with lots of burnout. And as we've already spoken, there are all the issues that other industries face, like anxiety and burnout and whatever. And the doctors now face other issues, like the doctors working in the government setting versus the private setting. They all have different issues. But one common thing is that doctors' hours are very long. There's no fixed, you get in at 8 o'clock, you leave at 5 o'clock. There are emergency services, there are on-call time when people have to work throughout the night, and they go up to 36 hours, sometimes to 40 hours. And still they have to be, all their marbles have to be intact. They should be able to produce the right diagnosis, the right medications. You can't say, okay, I've forgotten, I did the wrong thing, or I gave him the wrong injection, or I sent him for the wrong investigation. It has to be on the ball all the time. And the people who are in the very high stress departments, like the ICUs, the surgical settings, and the emergency departments, they are working like, they're seeing 10 patients at the same time, and each patient has a different problem which has to be dealt with right then and there. It's a very trigger dependent industry. So the stress levels are very high levels of burnout. And I've gone through the studies across the world, and it's across the globe, the stress the doctors are facing. And in fact, there's a huge amount of suicidal ideation and suicides happening in this industry, in our doctors' profession. And the females are more prone to it, and they're all self-medicating or hanging themselves. And there's a lot of stress regarding medical malpractice. And that's also another thing that we are facing now. It was a big thing in the West, but now it's become a huge sort of Damocles on the doctors' heads in our country. And though medical malpractice and litigation is valid, it's being used as a tool against doctors to harass them, and it's being misused. And a lot of the doctors in the US, almost every 1 in 3 doctors has been faced with a medical malpractice suit. So there are all kinds of stresses that you can think of and which doctors are facing. And there are not many avenues for doctors to go and vent these problems because, first of all, as you know, physicians themselves don't want to take any treatment for their own problems. And psychiatric illnesses are the last thing doctors are going to acknowledge in themselves. So they go on thinking like, yeah, it's fine. I'm perfectly okay. It's somebody else who has depression, somebody else who has anxiety. They just self-medicate and they go on like, they're gods of the world. But they are kind of superheroes to some extent because not all superheroes wear capes. The superheroes here wear coats, white coats to that. So we need them, and doctors are the ones who people go to. But then we are facing a lot of stress on a lot of fronts, and suicide and malpractice also.
While we look at medicine as one of the areas, I want to quickly take a jump into education. And Mr. Chandramohan Thakur, I'm going to come back to social media in a little bit for what we want to discuss later. But before that, I have a question for Dr. Vijayashree and then later for Mr. Sudhanva. Essentially about what are the key stressors in education, predominantly in higher education. We'll come to the school education a little later or the primary education a little later. But what are the key stressors both for the learner as well as for the educator?
Hi, Sandesh, how are you?
Very well, Doc.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I was a bit late.
Not at all.
So as you said, no, education has got roller coaster rides, and today I had another roller coaster ride in our campus. So I'm supposed to have an inspection done by DST, Department of Science and Technology. That's why I'm late. So with your question, fear of academic failure. So actually, I feel students, they all have quite good intellectual capability. The only thing is, I feel that we are not able to evaluate them properly. So I personally feel so, because whenever I take the classes, I initially start any of my classes with a questionnaire to my students. I ask them which learning capability they do have it. I give them the questionnaire called VARK. This is visual, oral, read and write, and kinesthetic learning. So they give the answers for the questions, and I try to divide the class according to their learning capabilities. So how many people are visually learners? How many people are oral learners? How many people are read and write skill-oriented learners? How many people are kinesthetic learners? So I divide the class accordingly, and then I try to inculcate the entire 1 hour class of mine as per the division I made it in the work. Now what happens in this is, slowly when I see the drastic change among the students, there are more of visual and kinesthetic learners, be it in any course. So less of read and write is a must. Are we doing so? It is not so in the examination pattern or in the class taking pattern with respect to academics. And also evaluation, we are trying to say that we are going to evaluate internally for certain good marks, and then we are trying to give them the exam. Exam is again in the Bloom's taxonomy, it is in the lower level, remembering, recalling, only in that level we are there. We are not making them to be very creative enough, because our own faculty members are not equipped enough to create the question so that we can have an open book. So this is the scenario across. So why blaming the students in this? Fear of failure comes into because they are not being evaluated properly. Now, when I'm saying this to the kids, that you are having the intellectual property, intellectual to as per the creamy layer in the class, they're very happy. So it's just a conversation I make with the students, and I say that this is the problem with that our society, our academic system. It slowly it will change, but you have this capability. They are very happy. At the end of the day,
my question, yes. Dr. Vijayashree, is a little different. Sorry to cut in over there. See, when we look at the kinds of challenges that we face or the stresses that we face in education, some of the stated stressors are, academic stress. It's become the most favorite word to use everywhere, and it's obviously very relevant, and that's what's coming through. But also there is the imposter syndrome that's coming in, both in terms of the student as well as in terms of the faculty. The faculty is under pressure to publish more and more papers, to flex and to position themselves in that manner. Similarly, in terms of the learner as well, the imposter syndrome is pretty predominant. So they also have, the other aspects that have come in is in terms of financial stress because of the socioeconomic background that they come from, cultural stress that they encounter by coming into colleges, and then they're facing different challenges at their learning environment. How do you see different uh, challenges evolving, mental challenges or mental well-being challenges evolving on account either of socioeconomic, cultural, like Akshay put it earlier, tier 2 and tier 3 cities coming into a tier 1 city because you're in Bangalore, and how do they feel? Do they feel alienated? Do they feel included? And how do you deal with those situations? I'm not really discussing the other area, but I'm looking at more of the mental well-being challenges that we'll encounter at the workplace.
Yeah, that's what I didn't deviate actually. I was coming to the same point only. So this kinesthetic learners, when they are able to see to it, their ideas are being converted. Within the class, even the mentors are benefited because of this. So once they are able to understand this capability of themselves, they are able to put their ideas, they are able to convert them into prototypes, they are able to learn in a different styles, they are able to interact, communicate with the mentors more. So the entire scenario, before it was one way, now it is two way, and also group related, problems, they are trying to solve it. So what happens is at the end of the day, because of these communications and the closeness along with the mentors, both mentors and the students, they are getting, benefited out of this. Now you are trying to say that tier 2 studies and tier 3 studies. Most of our college students, they are from the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, and they are not very well in communicating in English. So when these type of kinesthetic learning is put into the practice, they are from the beginning they are working in the groups. So and randomly picked, it is not friends and they are making groups. It is randomly picked right from the first semester itself. So in our college, this is working out very well, and by the end of the third year, they are able to come up with very good product. And I tell you, this mental and other illness, it has not been seen among the students because mentors are, they keep on communicating with the students. Actually it is not every day, at least every week we have a counseling sessions, we have this IPL project sessions, lab sessions, and so on, which makes them very comfortable with that. And economically and culturally, there are various clubs which can initiate that. Through these clubs, their interactions can be better, because the same mindset of students will be there. So I think that will reduce their agitation. Yeah.
Sure, Doc. Sure, and in fact, in colleges now, with the youth specifically, and not only the youth, even all of us, and I like to call myself part of the youth, but social media is something that's really catching on a big deal. And my question goes out to Mr. Chandramohan Thakur about how, and he's an IM pass out, and I'd like to understand from you, Mr. Thakur, how social media impacts students' mental health, and also what kind of steps that can you take to promote a balanced relationship between technology. There's no way you can avoid it, and to say that it is good or bad is probably just being hypocritical. But how would you look at balancing it, and how would you look at what are the challenges that they face, and how does it impact their mental health, and what do they need to be aware of?
Hi, Sandesh. I hope I'm audible.
You're audible.
I was visible on a chair some time back, but I can't see myself on a chair. Anyway,
Yes.
See, about social media and, a little bit background on what I have been doing, because I've been to IIT to do my BTech. I've been to IIM to do my MBA. I again went to IIM to do PhD, and I also joined the civil services. I wrote the CAT, the GMAT, the JEE, and the UPSC, all the all the toughest exams that a middle class Indian would want to write. And people, when I talk to students, they look at me as somebody who can help them guide how to crack exams. And the one thing that I want to tell them, and that is something that my previous speaker was saying, that first you should learn to fail. The biggest problem with us, with our education system, is that we have put too much emphasis on success, and as if only the people who succeed are the ones who matter. But I passed my IT JEE in second attempt. I passed my civil service exam in the fourth attempt, and I did my GMAT in my third attempt. So every time I failed. The fact is that with failure, how not to lose heart, how to learn from failure, and probably not get stigmatized that failure is something that you cannot take on your shoulders. And I mostly, when I talk to students, I give a lot of examples of sports and games, and that failing is something that should be normalized. Unless we normalize failing, because I see a lot of students in 10th and 12th, they stress a lot about their 10th mark, their 10th performance, and if they don't get it, especially students who prepare for exams like JEE and NEET, they're highly stressed that what if they don't make it. And I guide those students. I give them tips on how to handle the syllabus, how to study, etc. But I said this is not the end of life. If you don't get cracked through once, and similarly, a lot of people are talking about corporate stress also. Sorry, I'm digressing a bit, but there is a lot. Our society is too much achievement oriented, and we want to see people achieving only. If somebody is not able to achieve, then we are not able to accept that person. And so that pressure creates a lot of mental well-being issues. Coming to social media, in fact, highlights this trend of society, because people only post good stuff on social media. So if you go to Facebook pages, for example, you'll realize that everybody in your class is doing so well in life. And suddenly you feel very depressed that, I'm not doing enough. And and especially among teenagers, I see you post a picture, a friend of yours posts a picture and gets, say, 1,000 likes, but you get only, say, 100 likes. So you suddenly feel that, am I not looking good? And you actually go into that loop. I see younger people actually getting into that, because as humans, we are wired to seek social validation. So we will seek some kind of a validation, and social media is a very, mismanaged system of social validation, because those people don't know you. And since they are behind their email IDs and IDs, they can be very bullying, they can be trolling. And, if you just do a profiling of all the people who are the biggest trollers, they themselves haven't achieved much in their life. But they like to troll all big personalities, all great artists, all great politicians, all successful sports person are being trolled on social media. But the only way they have gone ahead is that they've started to ignore. So social media, one, it has exposed us too much to external validation, and then it impacts us, as somebody was saying, that when success makes you too happy, and then failure also makes you too sad. Similarly, if you post say a photo or a video on social media, and say a million people or say 100,000 people like it, you suddenly feel very bolstered about yourself. And next day you post another thing and nobody bothers, because there is so much clutter on social media, or the algorithm of the social media did not put it up on everybody's feed, so you didn't get it. But you start feeling negative about yourself. And especially among college students, I am surprised. I go around in colleges and streets, and I find almost every other guy using their mobile phone to capture the way they are walking, to capture the way they are moving, dancing on the streets and singing in the restaurant. In fact, I was surprised. I went to a restaurant to have lunch, and I saw 2-3 college students. They changed their costumes 4 times during the lunch, and they were busy clicking selfies rather than talking to each other. So the importance to the real social relationships that we have people that we hang out with, people that we talk to, people who know us face to face, that is reducing, and there is too much emphasis on people we don't know, but who, who are just numbers. So, for example, you have 1 million followers or 1,000 followers, etc. So, rather than getting into that rung of having too many followers or too many friends on Facebook or Insta or those platforms, it is important to nurture some very important friendships where you can have conversations. As a lot of speakers were talking about, mental health issues can be resolved only by having conversations. The true diagnosis, for example, as somebody was saying, that it is as serious as physical health issues. For physical health issues, there are a lot of diagnostic tests. You can do blood test, etc., etc. For mental health issues, the first step of diagnosis is to speak up. Once you go to a psychiatrist, before the psychiatrist does any kind of pathological test, the psychiatrist would like you to talk and speak about your issues, because speaking conversation is the first way of actually first accepting that I have an issue. So having real conversations, and a lot of serious mental health issues can be avoided if you have a healthy group where you can just speak without being judged. If there is somebody who just listens to you. So this social media, for example, I know a lot of my good friends who have actually completely given up on social media. They have completely deactivated all the accounts because it was only depressing them. It was only creating a lot of negative energy in their life. Rather than that, they have focused more on developing 5 or 10 close friends that they had from school or college, that they used to hang out during their college days in canteen, watch movies with them, go out to play with them, etc. Those kind of relationships actually help you do better in your mental health. So this is something that when I talk to younger people, and I try to tell them that, you do not need to have 100 friends on Facebook. Have 4 or 5 friends with whom you can be yourself. You can, if you want to abuse, you can abuse. If you want to drink and get sloshed, you can do that. If you want to just be, do any crazy things, you can do, because that set of 4 to 5 close friends is actually what will keep you very grounded, will keep you sane, rather than being in the social media spree.
Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go quickly to Somdev and then later to Mr. Sudanva and also to Rashmi. But before that, I want to just draw a bit of do a quick summary of what we've gone through. And my colleague Vikram is waiting with quite a few questions from the audience too. I could see that there were quite a few moderated stuff there. But what we've seen here is that we started our conversation today with understanding what were the main triggers or stressors. We went on to looking at how these are stigmatized, or there are fears, and how close their stigma and fear can be to one another, and also what you need to do to to build an ecosystem to promote people to discuss their problems. But what we've seen is we've seen a lot of our panelists contributing to what are actually either processes that are being implemented or steps that we are seeing at various places. So Som, when I come to you, what I want to ask you, because you're a technology man, you're an assessment man, and my question to you is, what are how do you see technology actually playing a part in early detection? And I think detection is one of the key areas that we've all sort of spoken about, but skirted around it. And we need to, unless we detect early, intervention or counseling or therapy or whatever that comes in may be delayed. And it may be delayed to such an extent that it could be life-threatening. And I'm coming to this point from a very personal experience from a very dear friend who I lost about 3 years ago, who was coming out of tuberculosis. And then the next question is going to go up to Bharti because she works in that field. But to you, Som, how do you see technology helping in early detection of well-being? And how do you measure its efficiency as well?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sandesh, and good evening, everyone. I heard a few words, and I'm sorry I don't remember the early speaker, but there were specific words about assessment. And it almost seemed to me there is a favorite word we use in our parlance in the assessment business called baselining. So one of the speakers spoke about, do we even know what is, how things are? So which essentially comes to what do we then measure? That's one. Second, I heard Dr. Vijayashree speak about Bloom's taxonomy and assessments not being of the right kind. So if you are able to assess correctly, then you are able to do a few things. While we do all of that, it's very important to understand even before we go to those. So when we are talking assessments in this area of mental health, well, there's a lot of work that's happened in the area of personality and behavior assessments, variety of tools that are available. I'm thinking the core is really about, and I spoke about this yesterday, one, leaders, two, everyone, every single individual, being aware about mental health, being aware about things like empathy and emotional intelligence, etc. And then even trying to figure out, because there are assessments which are based on very solid work on psychological and behavioral sciences. Today, with Gen AI coming in, it just facilitates a variety of insights to be culled out, makes personalization happen. But will all of that happening, the people who are supposed to implement, are they even aware about what this is? And so I know you spoke about assessments and how to measure, what we measure, how to go about looking at things effectively, and most importantly, the aspect of technology. So even before I get into the assessment part, which requires some amount of maturity, and with due respect, I'm not saying that we don't have that. All that I'm saying is I think the level of awareness that we have to even use assessments in a meaningful manner and make inferences and deductions and inductions, what you will, we need to enable communication. And now where can technology play a role there is, I think, a variety of ways. So it's a challenge, right, in diverse and very large organization to even address mental health issues. But clearly, technology can bridge a gap there. And how do you do that? There's a variety of work that's happening in and I'm proud that it's happening in India, with the use of mental health platforms where things like even anonymous counseling are on offer, largely as apps, or these are integrated into the systems of companies' wellness programs where you ensure privacy and convenience, right? So that's one part. Virtual town halls. So I think Shomana spoke about town halls. And virtual town halls is something where specific to mental health one can. So if I'm talking about reach, which I'm saying is more important, awareness and reach being more important than even getting into assessment, which is a very mature process, to gather pulse of the organization in the context specifically of mental health by even looking at anonymous feedback tools. So I know for sure there is a tool called Glint, which in all likelihood is used in companies like Accenture and HCL, where anonymous feedback is captured. And that's so important in the context of creating safe space, right? And we hear this word very frequently nowadays, and I'm sure all of you would agree, is the word toxic environment and toxic managers and a lot of things toxic. Now, how does it even come out? It can only come out if there are anonymous feedback tools. Now, is this very new? No, it's been there through various 360-degree reports, part of PMS, but then how effective it has been, that's largely been about performance, right? So has mental health per se come up? I would think no, or even if it has, not more than 10%. So focusing on mental health through technology platforms and driving. So today we live in a space, and I heard about social media and stuff. And yeah, so for example, and aside, the only place that I'm on is LinkedIn, because the others, it's an absolute energy guzzler. And as much as I don't want to be in the space of saying right, wrong, etc., because everything is great. But there is a lot of analytics that's being generated by sheer presence on these. So what they call digital footprint, right? So you have today, with the help of AI and platforms, you get a lot of behavioral trends that come out. So another use of technology. Then use of chatbots. So again, Sandesh, while you towards, you started with talking about technology and then moving into assessments and specifics thereof. I'm choosing by design to stay away from the specifics of assessments, because I'm also thinking a lot of us here are aware about tools like 16PF and MBTI and FIRO-B and the wealth of information that's out there in the world. But I'm saying my key concern is, are we even aware, and do we have enough information based on which we drive this, and which is in which context? Finally, what comes to me is the diverse communication channels, and which is so important. So today, Gen Z, I would think, is very comfortable with mobile apps and the works, right? But what about a bunch of people who are more familiar or would prefer emails? And these maybe, I'm thinking us, as in us in this audience, we may prefer that, and some of us may even be very tech savvy to be hooked onto apps, etc. But it's very clear that Gen Z is born with the device and they're doing stuff. So ensuring that reach happens to appropriate communication through diverse channels is the key. And with all of that addressed, now you look at various aspects of, invariably what will happen is you'll come at personality and behavioral aspects. The personality aspects being traits which are some of which are not amenable to change, some of which with significant intervention amenable to change, and most of the other aspects under workplace behavior, so being driven, etc. And everything today is about performance, performance, performance all the way, right? So very clearly there are traits which are one very strongly if I may use the word, skewed towards personality. And I'm saying, so when I say personality, I'm saying not amenable to change without significant intervention, some not amenable to change at all, but the workplace behaviors through which you can gain some insights into what's with this person, where is this person at, is something that's, I'm thinking, a very large topic related to, again, workplace. Now, does all of it point to the state of the person in the context of mental health? I'm not very sure. In fact, I have my doubts, but I'm yet to see a tool which is used in organizations at a very, very large scale, which measures all this. Are such tools available? Of course, they're available. There is some great body of work happening, especially outside of India, and gaining traction in India as well. So, in the interest of time and in the interest of concluding, assessments to look very clearly at personality instead of workplace behaviors. I'm saying workplace behaviors are important to the organization in the context of running the organization, but to look at the real personality or the mental health aspects, a deep dive into personality, which I'm thinking is not very well covered, is what is required. And yeah, I know I have left a bit of gray there, but by design, I think it's a long way for us to go before we can specifically say organizations are using tools which are devoid of performance metrics, looking at mental health only, and which is where I laid a lot of emphasis on collecting data from a variety of communication and other sorts of platforms that can be used to capture that information, and use a variety of tools to make inferences. So Sandesh, yeah, I'd like to close there.
Mr. Sudhanva, what do you see as the tools that are currently being developed across, and how important are these tools in terms of early detection of mental well-being challenges?
This is not about school or children, right?
No, not about school or children.
Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT assessments are being quite increasingly used. We work with a large number of clients outside of the US and different locations ourselves. And as Somdev sir said, I think it's important to focus on the persona when compared to or in relation to workplace behavior. The two are interconnected. The persona and the characteristics of a person does reflect in the workplace behavior. Now, how do you assess? You assess the popular ones today, or CBTs, cognitive behavioral therapies, which are result of assessments that people do online and by in person, where it is possible, leading to not only assessment before you bring somebody on, it also includes remedying a certain trait or a certain trauma or result of a trauma that an individual may have gone through in the workplace. So yes, assessments have a role. Need not be only technology based. It would be in fact wrong to assume that technology based assessments will do everything for you. It can be used as a precursor to in-person assessments, which as a combination may give you the desired results. And then you follow it through with solutions. I think generic training and addressing a larger group with training and interventions is one thing. Yes. The other could be personalized, because each individual may obviously have his or her own characteristics and situations and circumstances which an organization will not know. Hence, dealing with them as individuals is more important. Thank you.
So super, sir. Thank you very much. Ayushi, when you start looking at early detection, and yesterday you were talking about early detection. How early is early detection, and what are the impacts of not being able to detect early?
Yeah. So according to a study by WHO, half of mental health disorders start by the age of 14. And that is typically when students would start high school or 9th grade, right? And it's honestly the worst timing to be, because like 9th is basically 10th, right? Like you have so much pressure to, especially like someone pointed out, in India, we are so obsessed with achievement, and education is not for like self-improvement or, learning to think for yourself. It's more or less a status symbol. Like, oh, I went to IIT. Oh, my kid goes to Harvard. And so that is, so to prevent someone from developing a mental health condition at 14, we need to start sort of talking about it from a young age. And this is a problem that I myself faced, right? So I got diagnosed with depression at 15, but that doesn't mean that it happened for me at 15. Like it was just like happening since, I don't know, maybe even like, I was 10 or 8 or 9. But because I did not have access to mental health education, because I was not I was not literate in mental health, I had no idea that, oh, being consistently sad for like, weeks on end was actually a sign of distress. So how can teachers even detect, like, what are the early indicators? No one is born with an inherent knowledge of mental health literacy, or no one really knows how to like detect the early indicators. And for that, we have to teach them, right? Like if you want to teach a kid to read, you will not hand them like War and Peace by Tolstoy. Like that would be just stupid, right? You would start with the ABCs. And that is exactly how we have to tackle the issue of mental distress and mental health literacy. Like we are one of the few and the first generations to even talk about mental health. Like generations prior to us, they would just like shove it under the carpet. And that is also one of the reasons behind the stigma towards mental health, along with resilience, right? Like we believe that we just have this inbuilt resilience. We don't have it, but we should have an inbuilt resilience to mental health distress. And, if you talk about it, oh, you're too weak, like Sindhu ma'am pointed out, all the labelings and all of that. So the way I am solving the problem is that I have developed a teacher's mental health literacy curriculum, And I know it's a bold move, like imagine being 20 and then, telling teachers who are like so much older than you and they've been teaching their entire lives and going to schools and being like, oh no, but guys, maybe, we could try another perspective. So it starts with the ABCs. So I have like made an acronym, which is SCARE. So you can just summarize the entire mental health literacy in that acronym. So C stands for compassion. Like you have to be compassionate, firstly towards yourself and then towards other people. A is awareness, right? You have to make yourself aware of all the things that are happening in the areas of mental health. And like someone pointed out, we are so obsessed with like the three words, stress, anxiety, depression. But that's just like the tip of the iceberg. Like there are so many other disorders that we need to educate ourselves on. R is resilience, right? Like we can offer resilience training. It can be in workspaces, it can be in schools, anywhere. And then the E is obviously education, like mental health education. And it starts like you don't have to like open the DSM, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, and like read page to page for you to be mentally educated, like educated in mental health literacy. It can be something as basic as learning about a new disorder every day, or even if it could be something as basic as talking to your parents about it or educating someone else about it. It's really not rocket science. Like stigma exists because we are scared. Like human beings have the natural tendency to be scared of the unknown. Like in the primitive stages of our society, we thought that thunder and rain were just like signs that gods were scared of us. But now we know better, right? So the more we talk about it, the more we educate ourselves and other people about it, the stigma will obviously reduce day by day. And look at us here having this conversation. Like, isn't that like an achievement in itself? Me being here. And another thing, we need to start listening to students. Like I shouldn't have to go through depression, get out of it, start a non-profit, write an angry email to the Ministry of Education, and then go there and ask them for my voice to matter. Like it should matter nonetheless. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the reason that you're here at this table is because of what all you've done, and at this age that you've done it is highly commendable. And
I mean, I had to do it because nobody else was doing it, and that's the only way
absolutely.
to like make young people's voices heard. So
yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get Vikram in. He's got about 15 minutes with him. He's got questions for all of you. Vikram, could you come in and start firing away? There you are, right at the back. All right. Where do you go there?
here, I think before me said that, how she divides students into groups. And this is something that the government of Maharashtra, my mom is a principal in a government school. So I'm like always updated on like what's happening. So this is something that the government of Maharashtra is also implementing. It's dividing students into their intellectual capabilities along with other aspects. And once a teacher sort of has like a better idea that what works for each student, I mean, obviously, it's a time-consuming process, but it's definitely worth it if you want long-term like outcomes in students. But I think that could be one way that it could be done, just dividing students and like just handling them at their pace.
Awesome. Vikram, before you go ahead, yesterday some of you were panelists with us. We had the names of the participants who were giving us the questions, or the attendees. But taking a cue from what all of you as panelists mentioned during the program, maintain anonymity, we have incorporated that into today's session. So we don't know who the questions are coming in from, but it's anyway coming in. So yeah, Vikram.
I think that's an absolutely excellent question. I'm not speaking as a parent, I'm speaking as an educator and as a student myself, because educators always have to remain being students. We've all talked about how convoluted our high stress, high performance culture is. And there is a big transference of what parents expected of themselves, which they transfer onto their children, and children internalize that and are scared to talk to their parents as friends, as because where does our performance anxiety actually start from? It's not in school. It starts from the minute we are toddlers, which is why we really need to go back to parenting first before even we like start blaming society and we start blaming schools and educators about it. And it's not to blame our parents because they don't know better. They come from a certain social milieu which they grew up in. So I think it has to be a constructive conversation wherein parents first open up their minds and say, hey, we don't have to have the same expectations our parents had of us, of our children. Things are different. So onus really.
Can't hear, can't hear.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
Now I can hear.
Yeah. So I recently spoke to a good friend of mine whose daughter, who's in the 9th standard, came up to her and talked to her about how she was going through a mental health issue. The daughter was able to talk to the parent because my friend was open to listen, was receptive about it, and did not force her own ideas on the child. So I think we really need to kind of rethink about how we talk about all of this to build that trust. It's not it will never be carrot and stick between a parent and a child. It has to be about celebrating together, about going through life together, and the onus really, the child doesn't know better. So I really put it at the parents' table.
So I guess I'm the one to talk next. Basically, parenting doesn't come with a manual. No one said this is how you got to behave as a mom or a dad. And as we've all spoken and seen, yes, there are so many expectations of our children, which we bring from our own generation and transfer on to our kids. I think the need of the hour is for empathy in parents because things are changing very, very fast. There's so much of peer pressure, social media interactions, so many things that we were not exposed to as children. And with all this, children they need instant gratification, instant performance results, instant everything. And parents seem to also think that the children are going to do exactly what they think they're supposed to do. I have people who have come with kids who are in their 8th standard, 9th standard with severe back pain, severe body aches, severe all kinds of psychological issues, actually musculoskeletal problems, but coming from psychological problems. And parents don't want to accept that. They don't want to think that my son has a problem, a mental health problem, and that's why he's coming with back pain. Or he says, no, the boy has back pain. He fell down. He played hockey yesterday. After examining the child, you realize that there's a lot of mental health issues which is burdening the boy, and it's what we call as psychosomatic illnesses coming out as this. Parents need to have empathy. They need to have realistic expectations. And most importantly, I think parents and children have to have dialogues. Parents should be open to mental health problems. The social stigmas have to go, and parents have to be open that children can have these issues. They got to be addressed in the right way, and they need to be counseling sessions for children, not only in the house, not only in the school. There has to be a back and forth communication between parents, and parents need to be empathetic. They can't just say, oh, it's nonsense, go study, just get on with it. It's not, you're being irrational. What nonsense are you talking? I study for 13 hours a day. things have changed, and people and parents need to understand times have changed, and we got to move with the times and realize what children are facing then and we're facing now and then are different. As children, we face different issues, and now the issues are different. There's got to be empathy from parents now.
Yeah.
I have 1 minute to add, 1 more minute in this regard, by the chairperson's permission. So as a cop, I also receive a lot of complaints by the parents. They bring the children and other things. The earlier days, the parents used to have 10, 15 children. So each one was assigned some duties, like one become doctor, one become sportsman, one become farmer, one become like that. Now the parents don't have the choice. They cannot have 10 children now. They will hardly can have one child, and it is very difficult to meet the expenses of the schools, their goings and other things like. So naturally, all in one, like Dashavatara variety, whatever the parents wanted to become during their childhood days, which they could not able to become, they wanted to achieve through their children. That's why everything they get tensioned. They wanted their child to be a Kohli. They want their child to be a Sachin Tendulkar. They wanted Modi also. They wanted him to be a Modi. And they wanted to be Siddaramaiah. They wanted to be all the panels of the like intellectuals. Likewise, they have a lot of stress. And I have sympathy for the student who raised this question. In fact, I will tell you, in these circumstances, you will not get any solution. You bear with your parents' problem. And I cannot give any solution to the parents also, because they have, with all their economical background, they try hard. They don't even enjoy the life. They will put everything to the child. Everything, whatever they pump in, they will put it to the child. They wanted their child to enjoy everything which they could not able to enjoy. But the child will not understand that, because the child is in a different strata. He thinks in the like a strata where he is placed. He will not be knowing his parents' background, his poorness, or his have-nots. So there is a conflict between the parents and the child, where parents demand that you have to study, you have to become an English expert, you have to become sports expert, you have to become a A+ only. All these stresses, the student will not understand, and student will be hearing all these panels. Say suppose if he has heard this panels, this thing lecture, he will become an arrogant then. My mom is actually ragging me, my father is ragging me, while I have to choose my own things where I have talent. Let me become a musician, let me become a tablaist, let me become a sitarist, let me become a cricketer. Why my parents are egging me likewise? He will become a big problem to the parents if he has heard whatever the panel's ideas are. So here, somewhere there, we have to have the parents and child sit together. They will have to be given some like a real thinking into it. I think, thank you.
Fantastic. In fact, 1 second, Vikram, 1 second. One of the things, Mr. Narayanaswamy, is that the Ministry of Education on the 4th of January has taken a similar kind of a stand with regard to training centers across the country, where they have mandated that there needs to be counseling services available for students and for parents. Also, if you look at the education system in India, there currently is a setup where you need to have counselors in every college, school environment, because there are, like you very clearly pointed out, there are certain conditions and environmental situations that you cannot control, and it's out of your domain. But as institutions of trust and institutions of progress, educational institutions can give their students an ecosystem, like organizations can give employees an ecosystem. Educational institutions can give children and parents an ecosystem where counseling services, where mentoring services, where therapy and so on can coexist. And these are where, this is what we're trying to draw out. And despite these services being available, there is a reluctance to use it. And that's one of the core issues that we would like to address. And, as we go, I know that each of you as panelists have had very little time to share what you have to share, but the topics are so large and so vast that over the next 2 weeks, before we come out with our publication, each of you as panelists will receive a publication from us, where all of you are going to be co-authors of this publication, having contributed to the conversations. We will also be talking to each of you one-on-one to see what else you would like to contribute towards the overall event. Mr. Sudanva has something to say and he's waiting to interject. Mr. Sudanva?
Thank you, Sandesh. It's a wonderful goal to have, to put together a publication based on the diversity of views that you've heard and you will hear going through the next couple of weeks. Thank you for inviting me on the panel today. Sorry, I'm traveling in interior Tamil Nadu, so the signal is off and on. But very happy to have been there. Very informative. I learned a lot from all the other panelists. Thank you, Sandesh. Thank you, all the panelists.
Pleasure.
And hope to see you soon.
See you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Please.
I will leave now. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want, am I audible? Yeah, I just wanted
You're
to
audible
add,
and visible also now.
yeah, I just wanted to add to the student and children and parents' expectations, etc. And as somebody already emphasized that we are putting up as parents, we ourselves have some unfulfilled expectations as children, or whether we have been successful in our own right or not, we have some wishes that we want to put on the child, and not realizing that when we were children, then we did not want to fulfill somebody else's wishes, right? We lack that empathy the moment we become parent. So, and it is a hard thing to realize that our children are not our carbon copies. They are not the same as us, right? And as somebody was saying earlier, you could have 5, 6, 7 children. Today, most of us have 1 or 2 children. So, if, for example, we are 3 siblings, all 3 of us are very different from each other. None of us represent our father or mother. All 3 of us have taken very different paths in our life. Similarly, your child can have a very different path than what you think is the right path. The pressure is mostly, the parents are under the pressure of the rest of the society. That typical Sharma ji ka beta syndrome, that his son has done so and her daughter has done so. So it is very difficult for us to realize that our children can have their own unique capabilities. So this dialogue between parents and children is something that is much more required. And as Dr. Ma'am said, that that empathy for children, that they can have their own view about what they want to do with their own life, rather than creating too many expectations with children. We should try to more understand what they are good at and what they would like to do. I think that would help in raising more mentally healthy children. And that probably they will be achievers in their own right.
True.
Yeah, more than children, and social media problems. Maybe this is humorous, so please take it with the kind of humor I mean it with. Parents should stop looking at what social media is saying about what their peers' children are achieving, not achieving, doing, not doing. I don't mean to blame parents, because like I said before, they come with their own set of circumstances. So they need all the empathy that they deserve. It's just that, can we create a better dialogue between parents and children?
Yep.
Sandesh, I have a question for Mr. Narayan Swamy.
Yes, please.
May I?
Yes. You're not visible, but yes, please
time?
go ahead. Yeah, we are on time, okay. But please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not visible for. Yeah, it's a short question. I really was very happy to know when he spoke about parents coming to the police station to say their children are not studying. Now, my question is that that's a very important thing. Are your people trained? How do they address this issue? Because it could be a very important point of change if they were to handle this issue in a sensitive manner and tell the parents something that can make a difference.
Yeah, madam, it's really raised it. Thank you very much. We have some institutions like Parihar, and also some institutions where for the senior citizens addressing, and the same wise Sahayavanis, and at the same time for the children assessment problems. Like, so normally most of the parents when the children are doing something else, like they complain that the child is acting something different, but they will not be knowing that because of their attitude the child has become something psychic variety. They will not be knowing it, but they will bring that. So once if we hear it, first what we do is we will make them comfortable, and we will have the child separately talk to us, and then we will address the parents. Then what's happening, we will try to recreate the situation what might have happened between themselves among the three, like parents and the child. How what is their approach, what is their need, what they are ordering, and how the child is reacting, where he is studying. So these factors first we will study first, because we wanted to get ourselves to step into their shoes. Unless and otherwise we know that we'll not be knowing how to address it. So later on, most of the time we will be to the child side. Suppose if we come to know that a child is not really into the bad habits like drugs, like sex, like stealing, like arrogancy. If he is not into the bad habits, then we will always go for the child side. Suppose if he has done something where he will unknowingly he have become a slave of that, then we will not be against him. We will try to correct all three of them together. Then we will take it off. Otherwise, in the first case, when the child is he is going for playing cricket, or he is going for football, he is not studying, he is not coming A+ and other things, we will not go against the child. We will always convince the parent. Tomorrow he may become Maradona. Tomorrow he become Pele. Becoming an ordinary engineer, he will get 1.5 lakh rupees salary. If he becomes Pele, he will get 1 crore for one match. We will tell like that to the parents. So we will be always siding the child. We wanted to see parents, they've already reached some status like datum. They cannot grow. So now we have to focus on the child. So if we can provide a beautiful atmosphere to the child, we will not be knowing where he will come. More the ordinary tea seller can become a prime minister, means each child which visits a police station, he can be a superstar, like a star of India. So likewise, we always give positive approach to the child. I think I have answered you, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Just I want two very short remarks. One is that probably will become that vital link between mental health. Society is all about convergence, right? So you could be that vital link. And second thing, on a lighter note, you said sex was a bad habit, and I object to that.
No, not that. Not that. There is everything say. Food-wise.
None of us would be here, but for that, the world wouldn't exist.
No, in the lighter sense, even if you have
but
to
thank
have
you.
food.
I think you're doing a great job.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you're doing a great job, and the government should pick up on this and actually do something more about it. Thank you.
We're at 7:04, and if I may extend the session to 7, at 5:04, if I may extend it to 5:10, I have one question of Bharti Gansham, and that's essentially to do with the kind of environment that she works with. She works with people with tuberculosis, people with AIDS and HIV, and that has a lot of challenges that come along with it, both from the individual suffering as well as from the people who are counseling and mentoring and giving them therapy. So, Bharti, how do you look at their mental well-being, and what avenues do they have to address it as individuals? Yes, those who are going through medical services, of course, have counselors and therapists and everything else. But you, as an individual, as a person studying that field, as a journalist, what do you go through, and what do you cope? How do you cope?
You mean, do I get affected by what I see on the field?
Yes.
Yes. So I've been doing this for 20 years, and in the beginning, yes, I would project, what I saw in the field and things like that, and I thought I was going to go out and change the world. And that was
Mhm.
not doing any good for my writing, because then I always ended up writing subjectively. And sometimes that may not have been the entire truth, or it may not have been 100% factually correct. I had to sort of face my own defeats while doing that, and I learned it the hard way. In fact, one of the articles I wrote for the Lancet was somebody wrote in with a conflict of interest issue about that, and that happened because I had sort of not been objective about what I was doing in that article, though my intentions were completely honorable. So I've learned the hard way that, you know, when you're writing about these people, because you see some of the harshest forms of suffering, the harshest forms of stigma, very, very difficult to stay disconnected or dispassionate or unaffected. So I really learned it the hard way, that I'm doing them no good if I'm going to get affected by what I see and then write it like that, like an affected person myself. So nowadays I distance myself from everything I see on the field, which is very hard sometimes. And whatever I write, I give it 10 readings to see whether I have projected anything onto that which I should not. I'd love to hear, I'm sorry, I'm not good at remembering names, but the other lady journalist, I'd love to hear how she...
Sindhu, Dr. Sindhu.
Sindhu, yes. I'd love to hear how she
lovely to have this conversation with you, ma'am. I'm in Bangalore now, but next time I come to Mysore, I'm born, raised there. I would love to meet you.
Oh, sure, yes.
Yes.
Yesterday I was in Mysore.
Yeah.
See,
yes. Namuru Mysuru. Bengaluru is just Uru, as I joke about it. Well, ma'am, I totally understand and empathize exactly with what you are saying. This is not specifically just about mental health and illness, but just about the role of a journalist in documenting society crisis and people's individual problems. Sir, as a cop, you have talked about how you handle it. I remember when I used to be a journalist and I had to cover bomb blasts. I had to go to the hospital, I had to go to mortuaries, I had to go to different places and saw people suffering. As a human being, my empathy and my anger at the system in a lot of ways would sometimes cloud my own judgment. As well as seeing pain and suffering, if you have a bone of empathy in you, that kind of gets over you. As I'm sure, ma'am, doctor, it's the same for you as well when you're doing your profession in the rehab world. But Bharti ma'am, yes, the first lesson I taught myself was, this is my job, and no matter what my personal feelings are, the greater job is to tell the story as is for society. So I have to leave my emotions and my personal feelings at home when I step out of the door, and what I write has to be fact. It is what I see, what I record, what I document for the greater common good. And my own personal feelings do not have a role to play, because that's not my job. I'm not getting paid to do that job. My job is to write the first draft of history as is.
That is beautifully said. Thank you. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, everyone. And like yesterday, we've gone 10 minutes beyond schedule. Thank you all for staying on. And
beautiful.
yes, we try to start in here.
10 minutes is actually nothing.
Yeah.
And a round of applause to the moderator and to the team.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you for a very enlightening and great session. A lot of very
Thank you, Madhuri. Thank you. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this forward over the next couple of weeks in terms of personal engagements that we'll have with each of you, and then we see how we would come up with a final draft. When we publish the coffee table book and also the digital flip book, it needs to be something that is of substance, something that is actionable, something that has a future to it. And not just one of those events that have happened, one of those conversations that have happened, and it happens again the next year. And that's not what we're here to do. So as a group of individuals and as a group of contributors, there are 31 of all of you who have contributed along with our team to this particular event, and each of you are equally, invested into creating something special out of what we have. Thank you very much, all of you. And I'm not sure who are still on screen, but I can see Somdev, Dr. Sindhu, Dr. Madhvi, Bharti, since she's talking and not visible, and Narayan Swami.
I can make myself visible now, but I think the light is not too good.
Yeah.
I'm looking like a ghost because the light is not good.
Yeah.
In the street,
And
you'll think.
oh, there you are.
And
there
you
are.
have 30.
Sorry, I lost you in between.
People still on the
fighting for the game.
So that's good.
Thank you very much, and we'll follow this up with an update of the day, and also at the end of the session after 4 days, we'll also get a complete update of the overall program. And it's the 2 weeks that transpire after that that's going to be really grueling and time consuming. So I will request all of you to do spare a little bit of time for us to put together all of this and compile this into something that's really meaningful that we can take forward. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Sandesh. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Wonderful opportunity. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.